done me to evils, and my people have done me so wrong. They've forsaken me the fount of living water, heal our systems that won't last long. My people have done me to evils, and my people have done me so wrong. They've forsaken me the fount of living water, heal our systems that won't last long. Oh, Jerusalem, oh, Jerusalem, I would gather you like a extended by my hand. Yet you stoned all the prophets I sent you. They were good, worthy, mortal men. My love for you unto you is without measure. 'Tis a love without beginning or end. I would have given you your transgressions, cast in a sea of forgetfulness your sin. My people have done me to evils, and my people have done me so wrong. They've forsaken me the fount of living water, healed our systems that won't last long. My people have done me to evils, and my people have done me so wrong. They've forsaken me the fount of living water, our systems that won't last long. 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 You don't know when the sun shall get.
About 4 years ago, I left prison. I got out on parole. And once I got out on parole, I left with $25 in my pocket and the clothes that was on my back. I had only one pair of drawers, and those drawers I was wearing. I got on the Greyhound bus and life was totally different. What we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about my reentry experiences. I'm also going to talk about life past prison and what my life has been. A lot of the videos I'm going to talk about reentry and other issues that's germane and tangential to mass incarceration, but I'm going to use a lot of statistics. I'm going to do some music, and this is one of those kinds of videos where I'm going to just talk about myself for a little while. Now, what I had planned to do was to make a carrot cake. I like making carrot cakes, and my friend John and Jay like to eat carrot cake. And my neighbors like to come over here and get carrot cake. So what I've done is I've always had a recipe, because no matter what, I could forget things. I'm human. So today we're going to make the carrot cake, and I'm going to make the carrot cake and simultaneously talk to you about my reentry. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do in this video is to take care of putting the recipe together. I need 1.5 cups of flour. And what I usually do in my life is when you come home from prison, you don't have much money. I'm thankful to have this house. It may not be Buckingham Palace, but it's my house, and I thank God for it. So what I'm going to do is to put in 1 1/3 cup, 1 1/3 cup of flour. Gonna mix it in. I already have the oven at 350 degrees. Third cup of flour. 1 cup of sugar. Now when I moved in here, I brought these jars from the Dollar Tree. They cost $1. And then what I've done is I've labeled the sides so that whenever I run out of something, I can just look at the jar and tell what I need and make my list. And usually what I do is I put a post-it up here and tells me what I need. So I need 1 cup of flour. And usually what I do when I get finished using an ingredient, what I do is I take the ingredient and I put it back so that, number one, I don't make a mistake and use it twice. When you live on a fixed income, it's best to fix your own food. You find that you save a heck of a lot of money, and you always have something that's there the next day. So I'm going to have a teaspoon and a half of baking soda and a teaspoon of baking powder. Teaspoon of baking powder. And a teaspoon and a half of a teaspoon of baking soda. Then I have cinnamon, I have a half teaspoon of cloves, now I calculate that when I go to a restaurant and buy a carrot cake, each slice will cost around about $2. If I make carrot cake, I could divide it or slice it into 12 pieces. 12 times 2 is 24. And so I would have saved a heck of a lot of money doing my own thing. Allspice, I use a half a teaspoon. Oh, I got thyme. Sometimes we have to be careful because the bottles, the containers look alike. And so I check it to make sure that my cheesecake tastes like cheesecake and it doesn't taste like turkey. And then I add in a half a teaspoon of salt. Then I take my whisk. Now I have spent 18 years, or over 18, 8.5 years in prison. And I remember I spent more time because I didn't know where I was going to go. You know, most of the time I didn't hear from relatives. You just don't hear. It was a different age. When I left and went to prison, we used to have mail call. And the woman used to come in with a stack of mail like that. And then as the years went on, something happened in Chiang Mai. Mail call, instead of taking 15 to 20 minutes, it took a couple of minutes because nobody was getting any mail. And a lot of the mail that did come from people was legal mail that they had to go up to the place and sign for. So what happened was, the world had changed. We sat there for 10, 15, 20 years, and some people for 30 years, but they weren't really conversing on what was happening on the outside. What was happening on the outside was people wasn't going to the mailbox anymore. People were using Gmail and email and Hotmail or whatever they got. And therefore, people who would have written us didn't write. Something else happened in chain gang, and we're going to talk about it later on, is predatory practices that corporations involve themselves in. Now, I'm using these containers for a couple of reasons. Number one, I couldn't afford a lot of the fancy stuff. You have to set your priorities. So a lot of times what I did is I had guests over, my brother will come over, someone else will come over and have ice cream. So instead of throwing these things in the garbage, I take them and I use them. So I've mixed my dry ingredients, and now what I do is I mix my wet ingredients, which call for 3 eggs, now I'm no cook, and I spend a lot of my time writing, producing YouTube channels, putting together the reentry package, and doing that sort of thing. So most of the time what I do is I come in and I use one day to cook. And that day allows me to cook for the whole week. So I don't have to spend my time in the kitchen or go out and eat, which is more expensive because I can't afford it. You do what you can afford to do. You take care of your housing expenses first. When I got out, I didn't know where I was going to live. I went to a reentry house for 3 months, and during that 3 months I had to decide, what am I going to do next? And the next thing I did was I called up my sister, and I stayed there, and I purposed in my heart I was going to stay there for 1 year. And you know what? I stayed there 1 year. And about 1 year later, I was moving into this place. By the end of that year, this house was taken care of. I didn't have to worry about that. When your house is taken care of, then what you could do is you can go on and do other things. We're going to have a video in the future about the whole idea of setting priorities. Because when a man gets out of prison, he's scared. When I first got out of prison, everything had changed. I got on that Greyhound bus, and it wasn't like the last time I got on the Greyhound bus in 1997. This was 2016. People had changed. I got on the bus,